Everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Ian Rivers over there. Ian, a little bit later on this week's episode than normal, but there's a pretty good reason why. And if you're watching on YouTube, you already know. So Ian, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, we brought back one of our first big get interviews here. Now offensive coordinator of the Bemidji State University football team, Jordan Hein. Jordan, welcome back.
Appreciate you guys having me back. It's been long overdue to be back on the old Beaver Banter pod.
Yeah, and obviously you took we'll call it a gap year. You had an opportunity to go be an offensive coordinator last year for Northern, and we'll kind of just start on that. Just talk about it. I know when we talked with you last, you kind of said you wanted to try and get that next step and to try and do that and kind of see where your coaching career went. And that opportunity was Northern. So just kind of talk about what enticed you about that and kind of what you learned at your time there last year.
Yeah, it was timeline was kind of interesting, right? It was literally almost a year ago today when I made that move to Northern State. But yeah, when I was on the pod with you guys last, I love everything about Bemidji and my time and wasn't really in a rush to go anywhere unless there was a D2 OC opportunity or an FCS position coach opportunity that I thought was a good fit. When I went out to Northern State, learned a lot more about, who they are, what they're about. Had a lot of conversations with the head coach, Mike Schmidt. Met a lot of people on campus in the community and felt like a really good fit and really enjoyed my time out there in my interview and meeting the rest of the staff, meeting some of the players. And I know the timeline of it wasn't great, but I thought for my career it was a good move to make. And I'm very thankful and happy I did. I learned a ton of football there last year. It was one of those things where we're scrambling to get an offense put together in the summertime when you're not really hands-on with the guys in the summer. They're trying to learn a new offense player to player, 4 weeks of fall camp, and it's like, let's hit the ground running. But I'm very thankful and appreciative that Coach Schmidt gave me the opportunity. It was one of those years. It was, we start out 0-4, and I'm wondering if I'm going to have a job come Monday because we weren't playing very well on offense. And all of a sudden things just clicked after we pulled off a big win against Winona, beat Bemidji, beat Duluth, kind of had a nice little run of, winning 6 of our last 7 games and ended up being a pretty competitive ball club. But yeah, it was one of those things where I'm very thankful and grateful that I got to experience that. And then after the season was done and Coach Pike decided to get out of coaching, I wasn't really in a need or a rush to leave Northern. It's just one of those things. It's tough to say no to coming back home to Bemidji State. That's really the only job that I would have left for, basically. So, but very thankful, very grateful for it happened, and good to be back home in Bemidji as well.
Yeah, we took notice of Northern State. We had that game against you guys kind of middle of the season, early October, and we're like, all right, yeah, they got a win against Winona, but they're a 1-win team. Like, we'll probably be able to continue our winning ways. And then, Northern gave them all they could handle, and it was one of the more disappointing losses of the season at the time. But then to see your team go on that, I think it was a 5-game win streak, and then drop a tough game to Mankato and finish off the season strong with another win. It definitely looks a lot better. When you're looking at it in the rearview mirror, it's kind of you wonder what that team could have been in Aberdeen had they started off a little bit better as a whole. You guys had a pretty good season overall. It just started off a little slow, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think last year was, in my time being a player and a coach in this league, it was definitely the most parity in the conference from top to bottom. It seemed like just about anyone could beat anyone each week for the most part, which made it fun, made it, interesting, unique. Like, how often do you see a team like Minnesota Duluth? I remember one point checking the standings in the middle of the year, and they were kind of in the middle lower pack. Now, Minnesota Duluth's been in the upper echelon for 2 decades in our conference. So I think it's just one of those things where it was, I don't know if it has to do with the portal, transfers, all those different things, but last year was definitely the most unique season, I think, across the board in the NSIC in my time.
And, you make your way back to Bemidji State this year. And, as an offensive coordinator now, and that's kind of the next step up here, just kind of talk about how that role changes now from what you were previously at Bemidji State to now. What's kind of the day-to-day operations for Coach Hein?
Yeah, when I first got back, it was kind of put the finishing touches on the recruiting class, the incoming class. They had most of the class already committed when I got here, so just needed to fill a few spots offensively. Once signing day was done, it was really, start diving into the tape, watch the cut-ups of last season from what they ran here at Bemidji State, what tweaks we wanted to do, what things I wanted to add kind of as a collective group, collaborative group as an offense. Then we, from that point, went to a couple clinics this offseason down in the Twin Cities. Then it was spring break, ramp up for spring ball. From that point on, get our 15 practices in, get our scrimmage with CSP in, and now we got a little downtime, free time. Just finished up evals with our current roster, figuring out who's going to be here, who's going to leave. Now we're in the process of just kind of trying to enhance and supplement our roster with some transfers, get a nice little break, and then it's back to it.
Yeah, and kind of with once you get to the season too, especially, how does that change? Are you going to be calling plays? Are you going to be doing this? Are you going to be doing that? What's that kind of look like once the season gets going?
Yeah, it's definitely different, especially like even last year at Northern. Like I've always been a guy on the field when I was coaching the receivers and the special teams coordinator. When I started calling plays last year at Northern, I went up to the box. It's just my belief is when you're calling plays, it just makes more sense to be up in the sky. No external factors. You can just think, process. You don't make emotional calls or irrational decisions. So I'll be back up in the booth again this year at Bemidji, which that was new for me last year. But I think it's different when you're calling plays compared to when, you're the special teams coordinator, kind of like a rah-rah guy on the sideline where you don't really want to get all excited and rah-rah up in the booth. It's just kind of like status quo, even keel the whole time. So that's probably the biggest change is just being up in the booth, being up in the box. But as far as like our day-to-day operation, like literally what we did here, my 6-7 years at Bemidji is what I did last year at Northern as far as how we meet offensively as a staff with our players, with our coaches. So there wasn't really a lot of change compared to what I've been accustomed to. And obviously we're going to continue that trend now that I'm back here in Bemidji.
It's interesting you bring that up, the point about being up in the booth as an offensive coordinator. I've always felt like that would be easier because you have a better picture of the whole field and what the defense is doing. I know that it's give or take with certain offensive coordinators. I remember a couple of years ago, the Chargers had an offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, and he actually switched in the middle of the season from being an on-field offensive coordinator to going up into the booth because it just wasn't working for him. And I don't know if it ended up fixing the problems that they had, but that's the first time I kind of put my head to the fact that it's like, oh, wow, yeah, it might be a little easier, I feel like, from up in the booth. So that's interesting you brought that up.
I agree, and I've never been up there before in a game up until this last season, but you're spot on. You can see everything, and especially now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but we get iPads. So we get to see the film immediately. So for me, as last year being a first-year OC, that was very, very nice because, we get done with a player drive. Like, you always think, what happened, who missed that block or what happened, how'd they get us on this blitz? Well, we get to see it right away. So we get immediate feedback, which is great, which is huge for us to make in-game adjustments as we're rolling. So that's one thing that's been probably the most beneficial for me as being a first-year OC last year is not only can you kind of guess, like, all right, I think this is what happened, but you get that immediate feedback once you check the iPad.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff too. And again, this is an NFL level, so maybe it's not a one-to-one comparison, but like when coaching staffs are looking at stuff, when they get those iPads, when they're looking at stuff right away and they want to make those adjustments in game, I've kind of heard like the 2 to 3 drive rule is kind of the thing where like, okay, now adjustments are kind of going like the first few drives of a game before you make that. Is that kind of typically how it works? Or is it like now sometimes like after a first drive, you have to wipe it clean? Or it's like, no, we want to wait till halftime. What's kind of your general rule as you go through that stuff in game of like, when do you make adjustments versus like trying to ride out the process and do the stuff you work on all week?
I think overall, most of them will occur at halftime, to be honest with you. Once you're, face to face with not only your staff, but your offense. But I think that's when most of them typically do occur is at halftime. But it's just nice, like I said, having that immediate feedback like, oh, shoot, we thought they were going to be in this front. They threw something completely different. Oh, they just showed a brand new coverage. All right, if they give us this coverage again, we can get to this, this, and this. So I think that's what the iPads are mainly for, is just, in my opinion, how we use them is just like that immediate feedback, almost like yes, no, they're doing what we thought they were, or no, they're doing something completely different. We got to change and adapt. So it's been a unique process just because it's always a flip of a coin if the iPads are going to work with whatever the connection. But I would say last year, I think for us, when I was at Northern, they worked in every single game besides one. It was actually at Minot, one of the games we lost, ironically. They didn't even have it set up. So I remember last year we had our defensive line coach and our GAs like literally helping Minot State when our team was stretching to set up the freaking iPads and whatever it's called, the display. I don't even know. It's above my pay grade, but like it was one of those things where it's like, all right, little home field advantage. Not having the iPads for a game like that, especially a triple option team, an odd front defense, and kind of ironic how it all worked out.
Yeah, exactly. And you're coming back to this Bemidji State team. Obviously, you've talked before about your relationship with Coach Bolte, and what was that conversation like coming back, and kind of what have you guys been talking about since you've had the job, just on kind of what this offense can be?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, because when I moved back here, I stayed with him and Kim in their house down in their basement for about, I think it was 2 weeks before I moved in back to my place. We had a lot of conversations early on things that he's liked, things that he'd like to see, and kind of pick my brain with it. There's no secret to like things we've done here in the past as far as like verbiage is out there now. Obviously, I was at Northern State. We've had a lot of assistant coaches that have been on our staff that are spread out through across the league that have an idea of, our verbiage, our scheme, all those different things. So I think the biggest thing from the jump is we knew we had to change our verbiage just because it's out there. You know what I mean? So that was kind of step one. Step two was kind of figure out, all right, let's see, we lost some pieces, lost some players. Mainly once we get to like spring ball, like, all right, how can we best put our kids in the best spot to be successful? So I think going into spring, we had a lot of conversations of kind of what we'd like the offense to look like, what he would like. And he's not hands-on at all. He's like, hey, these are just some of my ideas. He's like, it's your offense. Do what you want to do with it. But obviously I'm always going to pick his brain on stuff. He's a legend. You know what I mean? He's been around forever. He's a pretty damn good coach. So, yeah, we had a lot of dialogue early on. And I think coming out of spring, I think we have a pretty good feel of what we're going to be offensively.
You have any insight for us? I don't need you to get into plays or anything, but how much is it going to change? I know you weren't here last year, but
yep.
What type of more downfield action or what are we looking at?
I won't give you too much insight off the air, but it won't be a lot of change, to be honest with you. It's the offense I played in college, coached under for 6-7 years, and then replicated or tried to replicate a lot of things. Like it's a fun offense for all position groups. I think the biggest thing that we had to do this year was just tweak some things. We definitely added a lot of different pass game stuff, some new run game stuff. And then we'll have some tweaks in the fall for some things that haven't been done in Beaver football in a long time. So that I'll keep you guys wondering all the way up until September or end of August on what those things are. So I will say there is going to be some new things that haven't been done here in a long, long time. So
good. Love to see it. Keep us in suspense all summer, getting us more anticipated for Beaver football. And, kind of piggybacking off what Ian said, just kind of in the basic kind of root level, what does a player in your offense look like? When somebody asks the characteristics of somebody who's going to succeed playing under your offense, what does that player look like?
Yeah, I think each position group obviously is going to have a little bit different characteristics of what we're looking for. But overall, like, doesn't matter if you're an O-line, quarterback, receiver, tight end, fullback, running back. Like, number one, you got to be tough, both physically and mentally tough. Like, that's what our culture is built on is blue collar, tough, grind the axe. Like, the number one trait I would say is toughness. You got to be smart, and not saying academically super smart. We joke we're the Harvard of the Midwest up here. But you got to be football smart. You got to be a guy that can understand the scheme, understand the concepts, understand what the defense is doing. And then lastly, physical, just smart, tough, physical dudes. I think that's why we've been so good for so long is, yeah, at certain spots, you want speed, you want athleticism, you want size, all those different things. But dudes that are just going to be smart, tough, physical. Usually those are the dudes that pan out and end up being good football players for us.
Yeah. Last year I think was a huge year for and I know you weren't here last year, but we talked about ad nauseum how last year was a kind of a prove it year for the program. Like we've been in the tournament for a year on end, and now we lose the quarterback, right? That's gotten us there, and you don't want to have this national kind of like gaze that says, oh yeah, they had a great quarterback that broke a bunch of records there, and that's why they were in the mix all these years. And now, you got to go prove it again that we can be a sustained program at the top of the NSIC and at the top of the Division II NCAA football. And I think they did that with that late season push that they did. So yeah, I'm super excited for this next year. It's always fun, seeing what else is going to change. I don't know, things are probably going to change too, but I'm sure us and our fans would be remiss if we didn't ask if you can give us any insight on the quarterback situation, what that's going to look like next year. After having kind of a clear-cut picture, even going into last year, we kind of all just assumed, all right, Sam's been there for so long, he's going to jump right in. You have any insight that you're allowed to share with us at all about that?
I don't even know. What day are we at Michigan Tech? Our first game, what day is that?
August 28th.
You'll see on August 28th.
Oh, okay. That's what I figured I was going to get.
You'll see on August 28th.
What have you seen out of that quarterback room since you've been here? Just out of all the guys you have, what's kind of the makeup of some of those guys, and what entices you about that group?
Yeah, so right now we have 4 guys in the QB room, and then we'll have a 5th with our incoming freshman. I'll tell you what, I've been very, very happy and pleased coming out of spring ball with our QB room. Going into it, when I first got back, obviously, you had Alt for all those years. You had Sam McGath, who I know he only started really for 1 year, but he was a 6-year senior as Alt's backup, helped us win a lot of big games, in his 2 QB type system role. So coming back in, like tell you about the 4 right now. So I'll go oldest to youngest for you guys. But Zach Romack, he's a junior. He's from Morris, Illinois. He's a guy that has been in the program a long time. He's been here with Alt, been here with Sam. He's a guy that he does a really good job and understands the offense really well. He's a seasoned veteran guy, a guy that's been able to operate at a really high level this spring, which is cool to see. So he's one of the guys. The second one, oldest, would be Carver, as you guys got to see last year in the playoffs. Kind of stepped in and played a huge role, especially with his athletic ability. He's a 6'3", 215-pound kid. He's got a big arm, runs like a deer. So he's got just a ton of talent and, a big physical kid who I know in practice our quarterbacks don't get hit, but he's a kid that's like seeking contact. Like he plays quarterback like a Mike linebacker. Like he's just a big, tough, physical kid. And then we got the 2 freshmen, Bart Makinich from Mankato West. And I obviously wasn't here in the fall, but seeing his growth this spring, like he's a really high IQ football player. He's smart. He's got a smooth stroke, like the way he throws the ball and operates. So he's made a ton of big strides this spring. And then Caleb Thieneson from Dassel Kakedo, out of high school, he was a triple option quarterback. Like they're under center, now we're in the gun. Again, wasn't here in the fall to see him, but he's had a ton of growth and strides this spring as well. So I think the coolest thing for me is, I wasn't here to see all these guys in the fall. I have a lot of rough ideas of what I think they are, what they could get to in my own head. But just being in the meeting room with these guys all winter long, hearing me teach, because I probably teach a little bit different than Coach Pike in the meeting rooms. Like, these guys have been locked in asking questions. Now, the nice part is I'm very familiar with a lot of things that we're getting taught to them. And so it's kind of been a seamless transition. Now it's probably them getting more comfortable with me on how I call things, how I see things and do things. But it's been a lot of fun. It's a really good group. We have a legit quarterback battle. I will tell you that. Like, it's a legit battle. We did not name a guy. So I wasn't trying to just give you guys the cliche BS answer. Like, we have a legit QB battle. And to be honest with you, I could see a handful of those guys actually playing for us in the fall. So that makes you feel better as an OC when, all of them are a little bit different in their own way, but being comfortable playing multiple guys, it puts you in a good spot going into the season rather than like, shit, I don't know if any of these guys can play. Then it's like, all right, now we're probably scrambling a little bit, but I'm very comfortable with where the room's at right now. And that was probably the biggest surprise for myself coming out of spring. So I'm very pleased and very happy with the QB room right now.
Yeah, and not that we need to have you go down the roster of every single player, but kind of what does the position group look like kind of with your offensive linemen, with the receivers / tight ends, with the running backs, kind of what excites you about all those levels?
Yeah, I think the nice part about our offense right now, there's no question the strength is up front with the O-line. You have to win championships, you have to run the ball, play really good defense, and be sound on special teams. Like, that's kind of, in my opinion, a quick formula for success. We have a really dang good offensive line. We had a couple guys out with injuries this spring, but really, really excited about that group. It's a veteran group. I know you lose a guy like Jake Gannon, who's the Remington Award winner. You lose Big Willie Lemire, who's played a lot of football. But some of those young guys have really grown and developed and stepped up. And then getting a guy like Birdsall, who played tight end, got forced to play tight end last year, moving back to the center spot, which is where he's most comfortable. So that group is definitely the strength of our offense. Very veteran group, which I love. Tough, physical. And then our receiver-wise, we were missing a couple guys, a couple of our main guys who got injured in the fall with Jake Hill and Sherm, but they were just doing everything but contact, so they weren't allowed to do team stuff. But you got guys like Drayton Lehman, who's been here a long time, Caleb Miller, who stepped in, and then a few other young guys that have grown and developed that position. And then our tight end fullback room, Sam Connie, he missed all of last year with an injury, so he was out this spring, but he's kind of the leader of that group. A guy like Jaden Hellerud from Shakopee, he's just a physical fullback type dude, Swiss Army knife, do a lot of different things for us. And then some other guys are competing, more true tight end guys are Mason Eiley, Kurt Hertigan, and then Eli Pfeiffer from Walker are all guys competing in that role, in that room. And then at running back, the leader of that room, leader of our offense, Jaden Washington, can't say enough good things about him, do it all back. His big thing and my big challenge for him is to take that next step in a leadership role. And he's done a good job of doing that. And then Justin Cabrera, transfer last year, I've gotten to know and build a relationship with this spring because obviously he got here once I was gone. And then some other guys, Antonio Brown, who got a little bit of taste to play last year, a bigger, stronger back. And then Isaiah Tisdale, a freshman from Woodbury. So I think overall on the offensive side, we feel pretty good where we're at. Going to look to enhance at a couple spots in the transfer portal. And build some more depth and get some more what am I looking for? Trying to get a little more competition and bring the best out of each other. But really excited about where we're at and where we can get to once we're fully healthy.
Yeah, competitors welcome. Am I right? That's always a good way to look at it. I think a lot of people might look at a situation like BSU, and they've had so many position groups where you don't necessarily have one guy that takes, like, a lot of people might look at the running back room and say, well, we need to be given, Washington 25 touches a game. But I kind of like, every year it's like there's 3 running backs in that rotation, or there's, 6 wide receivers that get on the field every single game. And it keeps you deep because injuries happen and they're bound to happen. And it feels good to know that you've got a depth, a real depth chart back there rather than just like, all right, well, if we lose this guy, we're probably a little bit cooked on offense.
Exactly right. And don't get me wrong, like there's going to be certain guys that touch the ball more than others, but it is, how this offense is built. There's a lot of opportunity for a lot of different guys to catch the football and run with the football with their hands. And I think that stresses out a defense, both, laterally, vertically. That's kind of how our offense is built. A lot of different guys are going to get an opportunity to touch the rock. And yes, there aren't going to be guys that just have 30 carries and 15 catches, but there's still opportunity to get explosive plays out of that, both in the pass game and in the run game. But yeah, it is by committee. So.
Yeah. And, this is the last question I have for you here, Coach. Looking at, you were at Northern last year, but seeing Bemidji State go on the end of year run and able to not just get into the playoffs, but to win, a couple games and to get to the furthest point they've ever been to in school history, and to be just, maybe one or two plays that go the other way, away from beating Mankato and going to the D2 semifinals. I mean, how exciting was it just to watch from afar? I know that you were technically, with Northern at the time, but as an alumni and as somebody who obviously has a lot of close ties with the program, how fun was it to watch that run, and how much does that excite you about coming into this year?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool deal, especially like going back, we were talking a little bit about the quarterbacks with Alt and Sam. Like, I think it's pretty cool for a guy like Sam McGath, and he's a guy that waited his turn, very easily could have transferred throughout the years, but stuck it out, waited for his chance his senior year. And obviously Sam is a way different player than what Brandon was. You know what I mean? Sam's strengths were he's a smart, cerebral kid, got him in a lot of good run checks. At times wasn't an elite thrower, that wasn't his strength, right? But for a guy like him to wait his turn on his sixth year and take the program to the furthest it's ever been, I give my roses to Sam McGath, because that's a pretty cool story in my opinion. Now, I know it wasn't just Sam, but just for him personally. But yeah, I think it's a cool deal, especially like last year. Shit, that defensive line was freaking nasty. In my opinion, one of the best D-lines in Division II football. They're big, they're tough, they're physical. Like they really made them go on defense. But yeah, like I said, a recipe for winning football games: play good defense, which Bemidji had a good defense last year. Run the ball. They ran the ball really well. So I think it was just cool from being an alum from afar, seeing them on a year where on paper it was supposed to be a down year for Bemidji, probably compared to kind of the dudes and cats they've lost the last few years before that. But yeah, I think it's just pretty cool and speaks volumes of the program and where it's at. I just saw something the other day, some stats on, we have the most wins here at Bemidji since 2021 in our conference. One of a handful of teams that have made it into the playoffs and won a playoff game and made it to the Sweet 16 the last 4 years. So it's just crazy, a school that, is located up here in Canada. It's a small city, small town. We don't have the nicest things. The stadium's been around since World War II, feels like. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that a little town like Bemidji, Minnesota is one of the most consistently top 15, top 10 D2 football programs in D2. So
that's kind of the beauty of not only Division II, but kind of all college sports. Like you think about some of these college towns, like Clemson for a while was one of the best football programs in the country. And Clemson, I think, is like, 15,000 people, 20,000 people. Like, it's not a big community in and of itself. Like, right. Some of these small towns can kind of take off and get these good programs. And it's cool to see the community kind of embrace those. But yeah, I mean, other than maybe what are you expecting from this year? I know that there's no Mankato on the schedule. Duluth is back. That was weird last year for the first time. And God knows how long not playing Minnesota Duluth in football, but
just didn't feel right with Bemidji not playing Duluth.
No,
it just didn't feel right.
Really, really odd. But yeah, now they're back and Mankato's not on the schedule, which it's a little bit more normal because of, the old division split with North and South. That was more normal and all. But yeah, what are you kind of expecting this year from the team? I'm sure, it's hard to predict this far in the future. And as we saw with most of BSU's losses last year, I mean, they came down to sometimes one play. They were a 2-point conversion away from beating Northern and a touchdown away from getting to the national semifinal. Sometimes these games are hard to predict, but what's kind of your expectation for the team as a whole this year?
Yeah, I think when you look at our schedule next year, number one, it's a tough-ass schedule. Like, I know we don't play Mankato. That's probably the one big dog we don't play in the league. But it's a tough schedule. And early on, we got to find a way, especially with a lot of new guys, to win on the road early in the year, which isn't always an easy task. We got a long trip to Michigan Tech. Got to go back to Winona within the first 2 weeks. After that, I think I don't remember the exact order, but Sioux Falls and Augie, somewhere in there, which are two of the top teams in the league. So when I look at it off the cuff, like, it's a tough-ass schedule. We got to find a way to grow up fast and be able to handle challenges on the road and play some really good ball clubs early on. So, but that's how you want it. You want to play the best teams. You don't want to have an easy-ass schedule. You want to go compete with the best, because find out where you're at. Find out if, hey, maybe we're good, maybe we suck. And you find out early on where we're at. So I think that's the beauty of it, and playing the good teams and the best teams, and that's how you want it. And then obviously adding Jamestown to the league this year. We got a new squad rolling in, so it'll be fun having a new team in the league and rolling with that.
Yeah, Bemidji State football offensive coordinator Jordan Hein joining us here on the Beaver Banter podcast. Ian, any other questions you got for Coach Hein while he's here? Otherwise, I think that does it.
No, I just want to thank you again for joining us. It's always fun to have you on. I'm sure we'll try to get you back in the fall again as well, and talk some football once the season gets around.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys having me on. Always a fun time.
Once again, that was Bemidji State football offensive coordinator Jordan Hein joining us on Beaver Banter. Always really cool to have him on the pod, and also just really cool that he's back at Bemidji State as the offensive coordinator. So that's not the last time he's on this podcast. We expect a lot more fun stuff from him and the other guys over at the football side of things. But we got a lot more to talk about at Bemidji State. So much is happening. Before we get to spring sports and before we get to any sports, I probably should just also say, I know on last week's show, we talked about doing the ranking, drafting Bemidji State's rivals. We did hockey last week. Go back at the end of last week's show and watch that. It was a really fun discussion. We got a super fun one coming up talking about the non-hockey schools. And we want to wait. We want to wait on the non-hockey programs just because we had this big interview with Jordan. We don't want to take up too much of the podcast time. We're going to talk about that next week. So that is where that discussion is going to live. That being said, let's talk a little hockey portal news. There's a little bit of shifting. Bemidji State hasn't necessarily been super active in the portal, but there has been just enough movements to kind of paint a little bit clearer picture. Bemidji State so far only has one player go out of the portal, but who do we have coming in?
Yeah, Reese Chinton, of course, the player that left that everybody probably knows at this point. He ended up at Canisius, which is in Buffalo, New York, in Atlantic Hockey. And Bemidji was able to bring in a transfer, Van Uhas, who I believe we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we kind of were teasing the fact that this might be something that was in the works. He's a player that Bemidji State had recruited pretty heavily before he committed to Merrimack College, where he ended up scoring just 2 goals in, I believe, 16 games last season as a freshman. So he is a sophomore coming in for Bemidji State. And he was, I believe, a pretty good goal scorer when he played in juniors. So we'll see. Maybe this is one of those cases where it's just a change of scenery can really help a player. And Bemidji's got a lot of forward room opening up, even with all the players leaving. We got a lot of players coming in. I can tell you right now, I'm very excited for next year, just with all of these CHL kids that we're bringing in. I mean, I'm pretty hyped, and Van Uhas getting added to that rotation. Hopefully, he can come in and provide a Jackson Jutting or Riley Funk-esque transfer. Like that type of impact in his first season would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing's like super earth shattering. It's not like you're getting a player where it's like, whoa, the program is completely but it is just, it helps kind of paint that picture. Like you said, like, okay, here's, whatever. Can they be this kind of player? Can they be this kind of role for us? Like what's going to happen and all that stuff. And it just paints a little bit clearer picture of or maybe it doesn't, but at least it creates a little intrigue of okay, how can this team look like? What line, whatever. You try and piece it together. and then you see your predictions get completely thrown out the window the moment they actually hit the ice.
Yeah. Well, and you never know either, too, because like the big picture guy we were looking at last year was Carter Rancliffe. He's a 30-point scorer in Atlantic hockey with Niagara, and then he comes in and didn't really work for whatever reason here at BSU, and he ends up leaving the school and playing pro hockey mid-season. Same with AJ McCauley, who we thought was, hey, he's going to be a pretty good defenseman from Alaska Fairbanks. He came in and I think was a little bit disappointing from what fans kind of had expected from him, and quarterback in the power play maybe a little bit more successfully. And the guy that kind of, I could be wrong about when Funk came in, but I think he was like a midsummer, just like, oh yeah, I'll go to BSU or whatever. Like, I think he was pretty late in the process of the transfer portal window being open. And so he being the one that got the least talk, it was obviously the most important of the transfers last season. So you never know how they're going to play out. But yeah, just a little bit of news to report there on the men's hockey side. Women's hockey, I do believe, has brought in a few transfers as well. One of which is from St. Cloud State, one of which is from Minnesota. And I did not get a chance this morning to do the research that I was planning on doing on both of those players to tell you more about them. Because I was interested to see like what the Minnesota girl was coming in for. Like, was she kind of that trickle down effect that we had talked about, you know, like where all these big programs have these forwards coming in every single year and defensemen and all these people that are trying to wait their turn. Like we just talked about, you know, with Jordan off the air about Sam McGath waiting his turn. You know, is that the case where they kind of just get pushed out and pushed down the ladder and they get sick of waiting and they go to a team like BSU who's going to have more opportunity? Or what was the situation here? But either way, in my opinion, I mean, getting transfers in from a university as big as the U of M speaks to head coach Amber Fricklin's pull at this point, because if this is a player that at any point was good enough to be recruited by the U of M and get an offer from the U of M and go play there, clearly she's a pretty good hockey player. And then, you know, you think that those players don't want to take too big of a step down and like maybe we get poach where we can from out east or something. But I think this is a good sign for where the women's hockey program is headed, at least for the recent future here. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, exactly. Taking a look here, I'm trying to scroll through Jared Rubato's Twitter feed here just to see kind of where he would see the names of some of this stuff. So Ellie Kleppinger is transferred to Bemidji State from Minnesota. That was the one name. I've not found the St. Cloud State commit over there yet. But also just kind of looking at this as a whole again. Yeah, it's really big for the program to get those moves on the women's hockey side of things, just again to start seeing like, okay, who are we bringing in? And like you said, the fact that you can bring in from around the conference and be like, hey, we feel like you're a good fit in our program. It'll be really fascinating to see how that picks up as time goes on. So again, Jared Rubato over at the Bemidji Pioneer and obviously Lucas at Beaver Territory are people that you want to be following about all this stuff. And, you know, where's a good place to follow me in is the Beaver Banter Discord.
Yeah, of course. Get in the Beaver Banter Discord. Off season for a lot of sports is officially in session. It's about to be summertime. This is where you're going to get most of your news. It's all, you know, you can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook, you can look it up on the BSU webpage. That's all good stuff. But if you want most of it, it's going to be filtered into the Beaver Banter Discord. So if you're not in there, get in there. I will go ahead and after we record this, repost all of those links for y'all so you can get them at the top of your pages and maybe push them out to the feeds. But we got tons of sources in there, tons of fun stuff coming up over the summer and next athletic cycle as well. So yeah, definitely join that because it's just so fun. That's kind of exactly what I was hoping it would turn into. It's just a place where Beaver fans can chat about Beaver sports so that when we have cool stuff happening like that football run last year, we have somebody to talk to about it, you know, because that was the main thing that like just frustrated me when BSU was in the national tournament a couple of years ago, beating Wisconsin. Like, who do I tell about this? Like, I feel like I don't have anybody to go to and celebrate this.
When that happened against Wisconsin, I was in Duluth. I didn't have anybody to tell to. The only person I knew that talked college hockey was a guy from Augie. So it was like, where do I go? Nobody like. I mean, I could tell people, but they don't care. I didn't care. I still told them, but like, I want somebody who's going to be like, back with me. So my wife My wife cares to the point where she'll like ask questions every once in a while, but she's not in it. She's not an alum. She's not we gotta find this community, and we've built it. So also looking, by the way, at the Twitter sphere, according to Lucas of Beaver territory, Bemidji State women's hockey gets a commitment from forward Dwyer, I'm probably butchering that, but who currently plays for the Swift current Wildcats of the Saskatchewan female U18 AAA League, 11 goals and 9 assists in 30 games played this season. So another movement here for the women's hockey program. So there's all the hockey stuff to report on. I think that's pretty much it. So as we swing through there, I think we also need to point out a little bit about of news for Bemidji hockey as a whole. And we didn't get a chance to talk about this yet because we haven't done episodes. Pre-World Juniors are coming to Bemidji State. How cool is that?
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, this literally came out. We record Tuesdays, and we were told in the Beaver Banter Discord channel, another plug there for you, to tune in at like 6:30 last Tuesday or whatever it was, like a week and a half ago at this point. So we get done recording, and I turn on the Facebook live stream at my Bemidji or whatever, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, when they first unveiled that banner, I was like, shut up, like we're hosting, and then they just said it was like pre-tournament games, which is still awesome. Like it's still
cool.
Huge.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So the Sanford Center will be hosting some pre-tournament World Juniors games for the tournament next season. So next winter, if you're in the Bemidji area and you want to go to a World Juniors game, whether or not it is pre-tournament or not, there will be games at the Sanford Center. Dates, times, teams still up in the air to be determined.
Get to the rink and go support it, so they keep bringing more of those games back to Bemidji.
Yeah, exactly. Casper Magnuson was there, obviously, as somebody who's played in the World Junior Tournament before for Team Norway. And then, Eric Polkamp, former Beaver, was also a World Junior attendee at one point. It was a damn shame he didn't get to win his national championship trophy. I'm so beaten up about that Denver didn't win again over the weekend. But yeah, big news for not only the city of Bemidji, but the Sanford Center and, indirectly Bemidji State as well, because that just gets more eyes on hockey in the town, and it gets more eyes on, big time hockey, like pro. I was going to say pro level, but it's not really a pro thing. It's international, big time hockey.
People pay attention to the junior stuff, like they really do. It's a thing people watch all the time. It's a thing people pay attention to. And the fact that you get it there is really, really cool. That being said, about Denver, you just want them to lose. That way Zeev could come to the Wild. That's what we were rooting for. So
yeah,
finally,
and they didn't even play him in a must-win game. Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's okay. He's skating on the power play lines. So.
That was not to make this a Wild podcast, but like people were telling me like, oh, he's not playing because it's a must-win game. It's like, okay, but they're telling you he's going to play in the playoffs. Like, so if the playoffs are must-win games, like why wouldn't he play in this one if he's not going to play? Maybe he had more time to get adjusted to the power play system or whatever. Like, I get it, but it's
as a Hope Taker finalist, he's probably fine. He could probably
he'll figure it out, dude. Throw him on the ice. Yeah,
throw him on the fourth line. Who cares? Like.
Well, yeah, that's not really a thing on defense, but
I don't. Throw him in there. Make it work.
Yeah.
Throw him in there as the third goalie. I don't care.
Yeah, get him on the bench.
Brought him in there for overtime. They brought in Flower. You could have brought in anybody.
Right.
They already locked up the playoff. They should have let him play in the overtime. They already locked up the over spot. I know he was a healthy scratch, but should have just brought him in. All right. So anyway, there's your Wild podcast. And by the way, again, I'm going through things that we've made notes on that were like right as soon as we finished recording and could just get completely buried underneath the news that happens. Bemidji State men's hockey did put out as soon as we got done recording last week's show, I believe, that they announced the addition of Aiden Ziprick to the team. He's going to be a commit for the 2026-27 season, playing for the Moose Jaw Warriors and is a Manitoba native in Russell. So there's another, again, pickup for Bemidji State hockey. So just, again, gets kind of lost in the shuffle of everything that kind of happens during the spring, but there's your other notes. So with that, I think we're good. We good?
Yeah.
All
absolutely.
Right. That being said, we're going to get done with the pod and we're going to forget something. So if we do, just tell us in the Discord and we'll figure it out. But looking at a little men's golf, Ian, it's NSIC championships time.
Yeah, they're currently, in match play with, the rest of the NSIC as we speak, actually. And I'm sure as this comes out, we'll know more. You'll know more than we do right now. But yeah, the tournament is live. It's being played as we speak. Yesterday's results, they ended up tied for first. Of course, it's a 3-day tournament, so there's still time to be played in this one. Individually, right now, the leader of the tournament is Bemidji State's Logan Schupp with a -4 through 10 holes on the day, which is really good. I'm sorry, he had a -4 yesterday. He's even on the day, but he's still in first place through a day and a half of play. Other Bemidji State golfers, Brogan Pascal up to 13th. That's up 10 spots. He's currently at a +4, -2 on the day, so he's had a great day. Jack Southard, he is currently tied for 13th, actually at +4 with Brogan. And then Tate Usher, 15th, up 5 spots at a +5. And actually, unfortunately for Jack, he just finished another hole and had a bogey and dropped down to be tied now for 15th. So, BSU right now, if you look at the team leaderboard, is currently sitting in second place with a +7. They were tied for first after the first day. Winona's had a great day today. They are -6 on the day. Bemidji State +1 on the day, but Bemidji's 2 strokes off of first place with Winona State. So right there for the taking. And anybody who just watched the Masters last weekend knows just how much can change in a few holes of golf. So yeah, interesting stuff. They're right there. And I guess I don't exactly know how the golf world works, but I'm assuming if you win this tournament, then you're going back to the NCAA Super Regional again, as you did a few years ago as a team to compete in that one. So that would be really cool. And we'll keep you posted as we record next week, as this will wrap up tomorrow. It starts at 9 a.m. Probably goes the majority of the day, just like most golf events do. But keep your eyes posted for live results because they are updating. I know we talked last week about how the women's tournament that they were doing at the time that we were recording then wasn't using the live recording stats or whatever, but this one is. So if you want to keep track of the BSU golfers, you certainly can do that on the BSU webpage. So
yeah, and a little women's golf update here. They play their NSIC championship next week, so next weekend. So just to keep an update on that. That being said, to go back to what they did earlier this week, they played at Wayne State for the Wildcat Classic, and they made a 38-stroke improvement on day 2. So not necessarily the start you wanted, but were able to really come back strong. They still ended up finishing 11th at the tournament, but just to see that improvement from day 1 to day 2 is probably the best thing you can take out of that. They were led by freshman Sarah Sroga, who shot a 167, 4 strokes back of tying a career best by the freshman. So there you go. There's your women's golf update. Looking things around to women's tennis. They got some victories last week, or a victory against Winona State, 4-3. Then they got a 5-2 loss to Minnesota State. Looking now up ahead, they play MSU Moorhead. That game, again, going on right now as we're talking, but by the time you listen, will be completed. And then UMary playing on Saturday as well. And then that's it for the regular season. Next Friday, they are playing in the NSIC tournament in Sioux Falls there as well. So that's the women's tennis update. Track and field, Bemidji State is competing at the College of St. Benedict, St. John University Easter meets. And again, their season kind of wrapping up here as well in the outdoor portion of the schedule as they continue, not wrapping up, actually, should just getting started rather, as they go through here. They have the Easter meet. Then they also next week have the Drake Relays. the Bison Open, Viking Classic, like all kind of depending on what thing you're competing in, what event will kind of depend on where you're going, whether it's Des Moines or Fargo for that as well. And then you got the Cobber Open on May 2nd, and then the NSIC Championships in the first weekend of May. So that's where, or the second weekend of May. So that's where things are for track and field as well. They competed last time we spoke. They were getting ready to take place at the Norse Invite in Decorah, Iowa, and then also competing at the Minnesota State Open. They got 6th at the MSU Open throughout the day. Gabrielle Wilson marked a PR in the 100-meter hurdles and was able to come away there. Sophomore, Millie Rosage was able to take the number 76 time in NCAA D2 during the 100-meter hurdle as well. So that was a pretty good spot for her at 14.8 seconds. So there's some other things that were accomplished there as well, but that's a quick recap of what happened. And then that wraps it up there. So the only two things left to talk about, Ian, are softball and baseball. Since softball, we last talked about softball, they had a doubleheader against Crookston that they split. And then since then, they've yet to find a victory. They've lost 4 in a row with getting swept in a doubleheader over the weekend at Wayne and at number 14, Augustana. And then now they have some games this afternoon in a doubleheader against Minot, a doubleheader against Mary on Saturday. Both of those are at the BSU softball field for the weekend. It's already their end of season. These are the last 2 home games on the schedule. And these are also the first 2 games that they're playing on the softball field.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, we talk about it every year. It's how it goes for spring sports in Bemidji. It's a bummer, but senior day coming up tomorrow. As we're recording, at least it is tomorrow for University of Mary. There are 8 total games left. It's unfortunate that the conference slate is not gone as well as I'm sure the softball team had hoped and that we had hoped. But you know what? A great non-conference slate this year for the softball team, and that's a step up from what it was last year under head coach Jordan Peterson. So hopefully we continue to see those strides in the future as we've seen so far over the first couple of years of her tenure.
Yeah, like you said, Bemidji State not necessarily getting off to the season that they wanted. Currently 16-28 overall. They are 3-17 in the NSIC, 2-18 on the road, just 1-1 on their home field, 13-9 in neutral site games. Looking over to the baseball team here so far on what they got going on. They are 4-30 on the campaign, 3-24 in conference play, 1-3 at the BSU baseball field, 3-23 on the road, 0-4 in neutral site games. Since we last spoke about the baseball team, they were able to play again that doubleheaders in Sioux Falls. Or like we talked about last week, they got a win and then lost the last 3. They played Minnesota Duluth. They split in a doubleheader there by scores of 9-6 and 16-6. And then against top 10 team in the country, number 8 Minnesota State Mankato, you got swept in that 4-game series, losing doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday. The closest the Beavers got was in the finale. They lost 6-10. Otherwise, they lost 7-0, 16-2, 12-0. And I think this is also good that a good transition, because if you remember, Ian, this is a pretty big anniversary in terms of just the madness that can be BSU baseball. And this was brought to our attention from Coach Katz, Jesse Katz, on Twitter, brought this up, a Bemidji State coach here, talking a little bit about things. Happy 10-year anniversary to such a fun day of baseball. And it's just a screenshot of Saturday, April 11th. Believe that was 2015, 2014. He said 10-year anniversary, so 2015.
2015, yep.
41-20. Minnesota State beat Bemidji State in 8 innings.
Yeah,
41.
That was brutal, man.
41-20. They made Sports Center. That made Sports Center of like, what the heck? If I were to tell you scored 20 runs against a top 7 team in the country, you'd be like, whoa, this is awesome. And like, oh, you get mercy ruled in the 8th. I'm like, what? They double, you score 20 runs. You score 20 runs, but there's a catch. And you say, whatever, 20 runs, we should win that game. No, in fact, you get doubled up. You lose 41-20. In baseball, that's if that happened in
It's a football score, man.
That'd be a high-scoring football game.
That'd be an embarrassing loss for the football program, man. Let alone.
Oh, my gosh. 10-year anniversary of that.
That's brutal.
Man.
Ugh. I do have a quick tennis update before we skedaddle out of here. You can watch these games live. I'm sure nobody will care, as this will come out much after. But I'm currently watching. I have no update on the score. There's no scoreboard on here, but I'm watching the tennis team play right now. And I do have a NSIC tournament update. As I said last week, I do a little digging into how many teams made the NSIC tennis tournament. It is 6. So BSU right now sitting in 5th place. That kind of, to me, means you got to win at least one of these last 2 games, because we talked about this huge log jam at 3-4 and 4-3 in the conference. Winona is now 3-6, so they're kind of down and out of it. But Moorhead and Mary are both right there. You're going to want to win at least one of those games, and I think you'd be probably safe in the top 6. But right now, sitting in 5th place, this Moorhead game is going to be much, much bigger, probably just overall. I think if you win that one, you're pretty safe and in that field. So we'll see. Obviously, you want to win both and try to get yourself a higher seed and a better matchup, but we'll see. It would be really cool to see them go to the NSIC tournament. So hoping for the best there.
Pretty important match going on there. So, all right, that's going to do it for us. CJ Baumgartner, Ian Rivers. This is once again the Beaver Banter podcast. Once again, thanks to Jordan Hein of Bemidji State University football coaching staff. He's the offensive coordinator. Thanks to him for giving us the time. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. This has been the Beaver Banter.